This is Health UnaBASHed broadcasting live on Healthcare Now Radio. Health UnaBASHed is a conversational platform where healthcare meets innovation. We engage top industry talent and dive into the heart of health and wellness, from vision to business model, to bring you the latest developments in health tech, to promising AI applications, policy, and ultimately impact on the public's health and well-being. I'm Gregg, Masters co-host and executive producer, and am joined by the digital health aficionado himself, author, editor, global thought leader, and in his executive capacity, steward servant, Gil Bashe. Together, we're on a mission to bring you the people, the ideas, and the companies that are not just talking the talk, but walking the talk. On today's menu, we are in the company of Nick Adkins, co-founder of Pinksocks.life, a tax-exempt 501c3 charitable organization focused on promoting human connection around the world. The Pink Socks movement empowers people from all walks of life to connect with anyone, anywhere, by creating a global community of pink socks-wearing people who are focused on kindness, empathy, connection, and love. The movement has been decommoditized from its beginning in 2015. All pink socks are gifts. Every connection made between the gift giver and the recipient is based on an authentic connection, not a transaction. So with no further delay, Gil, the mic is yours.
Gregg, I want to thank you so incredibly much for that gracious introduction. And we have a very, very, very special guest on the program today, Nick Adkins. Everybody knows Nick, or if you don't know Nick, I have to ask, what rock have you been hiding under? Because if you've been to any mega health conference, Health, Vive, HIMSS, CNS Summit, and a host of others, and you've not bumped into Nick or the movement Pink Socks, you are most certainly not at the conference. I've been privileged to know Nick for, maybe 8 or 9 years, and I feel bereft that I didn't know him beforehand, because I think everybody who has met Nick through the years knows that their life has been bettered by the connection. Nick is really the founder of what I term not an item and not swag, as it's often identified with, but actually a heartfelt movement that deals with, in the health industry and in society, a mantra of more love, kindness, hugs, and caring for each other. He has taken the coldness out of running from meeting room to meeting room and made people look forward to a gathering that happens at all these major meetings, where people come together in a true sense of friendship and community. And that community is sustainable well after the meeting has concluded and people hit their flights home. Nick, welcome to the program. And I want to thank you for making time for us. I know you're often in your special More Love Pink Socks mobile machine. You're often on the road visiting school systems, meetings, medical centers, and spreading the kindness, spreading the love, as it were. Now, I've got to ask you a really pressing question. Most people know you as a long beard, a t-shirt, a kilt, sometimes a cool vest, which I did buy, by the way, at your recommendation, from Greyers. Not that we're making a plug for Greyers here, but I did get the vest. Thank you so much. Most people know you in terms of like the current iteration of Nick Adkins, kind of like, I don't know, nuts and granola, expecting to come out of the forest with a club. But there was a different Nick that entered into the health industry and the home of health provider services, of course, Nashville, Tennessee. You were part of, if I remember correctly, Vanderbilt Health Plans in Nashville. You were a suit-wearing executive with an MBA. And now we know you as obviously lovable Nick. What was Nick like in the suit-wearing years? Bring us up to date in terms of persona, mindset, pre-amazing, colorful tattoos. What was happening in your life then?
Well, first, thanks for having me on the program, Gil, and Gregg. It's good to see you, man, brother. So 2010, I was a suit tie guy. I was the COO of a healthcare company in Nashville. I'd started out really my career after my MBA program at Belmont at the Jackson Massey Graduate School.
Great school. Great school.
What's that?
Great school, my friend. Great school.
Yeah. It's amazing how that's grown. I was in the second class of the executive MBA program at the Massey School, 1992. And so fresh out of MBA land, I went to work at the Vanderbilt Health Plans, which, those were back in the heady days of HMOs and, things coming out of Boston and then coming down to Nashville. And, so it was a great time to be at Vanderbilt. In 1995 was when I was there. And I was Nicholas in those days.
Oh, my.
So I actually had hair that, slicked back like, I don't know, Gordon Gekko or something, cufflinks and the whole deal, Looking back, I was probably a douchebag. I don't know.
I find it hard to believe.
So I spent my, most of my adult life in Nashville, and then fast forward to 2010, I went to Burning Man for the first time, and it's a big festival out in the desert, Nevada, that's getting ready to happen. People are gearing up to head to the desert as we speak, and I came back from that experience and said, I think. At that time, I was 45. That was 2010. I was 45 years old. My father, I recently lost my father to cancer in June of that year. So just a couple months before I went to the desert, and just really trying to, decide what was next with my life. I said, well, I'm going to go to this thing and come back with an answer. And, one of the answers I came back with was, I'm done being the suit and tie guy.
Life-changing moment when a parent,
right.
Maybe the first time you've experienced like such a.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, it's very, type A MBA, classic, guy, overthinker, a little bit OCD, super driven, and, thinking that life is a series of if-then equations, that life is somehow linear. And the reality, what I learned from the experience with my dad and the end of his life was, hey, life isn't really linear. It's not like, well, when I reach this age, I'm going to do this. When I've got this much money, then I'm going to do this. We're all one phone call away from you've got cancer. We're all one heartbeat away from a stroke or a heart attack. We're all one nanosecond from that 18-wheeler drifting over, and, boom, life's happening right now, right here. Don't miss it. So I really leaned into the sense of how impermanent this life is, how fragile it is. And, what do I want to do right now? Well, let's do it. Okay. And every now, just try to be present and grateful. Right. So, and then what I've learned since 2010, what I'm still learning, the companion piece to gratitude is patience. Gratitude and patience are my two meditations, and every now and every day I try to wake up in gratitude, be grateful for everything and every now, things that I think I want. I just lean into patience because I believe that the universe provides. The more grateful we are, the more is provided, and it's a thing that works. And
it's fascinating to hear you. It's these profound moments in our life, generally tragic moments that make us realize our fragility, and realize that, some people would say, what's it all about? Other people say, how do I press on and make a difference in the world? And you seem to have infused meaning into your life by saying, how can I make a difference in the world? And, I look at your mission today. A quick question for you. You really have not moved far afield from the health industry that you were part of. You're still very much rooted in the health sector. And it's your base of operation. I know in our pre-show conversation, you and Gregg talked about the first Pink Socks meetup was at Health 2.0. I'm sure Matthew would appreciate knowing that, of course, and maybe even he'd take credit for it. Who knows? But
well, that's where Gregg and I met. Was I think 2014 in Santa Clara, and there were no Pink Socks at that point, and I was busy pimping a startup that I was part of as one of the co-founders, and we created some really cool technology around secure asynchronous video file management. And so I was, out looking for the money for the business. And I believe that was the first conference we went to, Gregg. I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and it was easy flights up and down the coast. So let's go to this thing. It's like, day after tomorrow, let's go. And and really it was the people that we met, like Gregg, at that conference. We quickly saw, there's a community already in place here. There's a tribe, there's a family, there's a gathering that you want to belong to in these communities that Matthew Holt had put together. And so then I was like, well, what's the next big thing? I think Gregg even said, well, you should really come to this thing called HIMSS. I'm not even sure we knew what HIMSS was at that point. And he's like, yeah, you should come to HIMSS. It's this big, huge gathering of all the health IT professionals. And it's the next annual one is in Chicago. You should come. And that's what we did. And
it's wonderful.
It was April of 2015. And that's when Andrew Richards, who was a co-founder of the company in Portland, he's also a co-founder of Pinksocks.life. Andrew and I came rolling into HIMSS in Chicago, April 15. And we had some Pink Socks with us to give away. And the very first person, as we walked into the McCormick Center, was Eric Topol, Dr. Topol. And that was the alpha of Pink Socks. The first gifting of Pink Socks was to Dr. Topol. And, Andrew and I just kind of looked at each other. And after Dr. Topol tweeted a picture that we took together, and we're like, what? And it, we had no idea how the thing was going to take off. It did. It went viral at that conference. We started using the hashtag Pink Socks. We met so many people at that first conference in the healthcare world who are really still, friends today. That was back in the day when Twitter was actually fun. And after the conference, Andrew and I helped Gregg carry his gear back to his car, and we stopped off at a pizza place to get some pizza in Chicago and a beer. And Andrew and I both were new to Twitter. I mean, HIMSS was basically our
introduction to social media.
Here we go. And so I asked Gregg, who was, pretty much a legend in the healthcare space on Twitter, hey, how do we really do this Twitter thing? How do we tweet? And so I always say everything that I know about Twitter, I learned from Gregg.
Boy, I'll tell you,
it was simple advice, Gregg. And I wish people could, in today's time, could take your advice. And it was very simple advice. He said, look, he goes, just play nice. Say nice things about other people, and they will say nice things.
What a great mantra. I think that we sometimes...
Where did that go?
Just dropping in, you're right on time for Health Unabashed on Healthcare Now Radio. Today we're chatting with Nick Adkins, co-founder of Pinksocks.life. Pinksocks.life Inc. is a tax-exempt 501c3 charitable organization focused on promoting human connection around the world. Stay tuned for the rest of the story.
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget in the health system that along with the science and the technology comes attitude and behavior. And the closer we get to the people we're seeking to help, people who have health concerns, patients, the closer we get to them, and the closer we get to them, the more we need to find within our hearts and our decision-making process, our mindsets, that sense of caring and kindness that you've inserted in. Gregg has certainly been a great advocate for that, and certainly his own journey speaks to that. But Nick, I want to ask you a very sort of key question, because often at these meetings, and I go to quite a few meetings, as do you, as does Gregg. These meetings are about, the business of health, right? The economics, the services, the technologies. And I think that the people who call themselves part of the Pink Socks tribe and searchers who say, what is that Pink Socks tribe? Find it to be infectious and a key part of the experiential element of these meetings. So we sometimes focus on the heady information, and we forget the fact that there's head, heart, and gut, that the heart is the connective tissue between the decision-making process and the thinking process. So I wanted to ask you a candid question. Between then and now, and if we reflect back on more than now, when you were starting to put together these gatherings of the tribe at this bar or restaurant associated with this meeting, did people say, boy, that's like, okay, he's just doing his little Burning Man thing over there, don't pay any attention. Today, of course, I'm wondering if you're courted by meetings to say, hey, Nick, are you going to come to our meeting? We'll put you in the schedule. What's the difference between the then and the now?
Yeah, that's how it happened. And so people do say, hey, I hope you can be to the conference, or you're going to have a meetup. But from the very beginning, and even now, we're very specific about where we have a meetup. And what we typically do is we find the diviest bar in town, like where the locals go, where the OG locals go to, the OG dive bar, the original gangster dive bar. I mean, these bars are not places that, corporate sponsors pick, or they're off property. If it's at a hotel or a casino, get out of there. Everybody's having their big corporate sponsored, brouhaha. By design, the Pink Socks meetup has always been, hey, this is an opportunity for you just to come hang out. There's going to be happy, smiley people at Pink Socks. There's going to be hugs. There's no pitching here. You don't have to sell anything. You can kind of relax, catch your breath, hang out with some friends, and then go back and, go get them, Tiger. Go back to the other conference events and put your work hat on. Pink Socks meetup is just an opportunity to be hanging out with friends, right? And that's really...
And it's a cross section, by the way, for people who are not familiar with Pink Socks. It's really a cross section of people from our industry who are really there. You get a lot of people who are main stagers at these conferences, who are keynotes at these conferences, people who are exhibitors at these conferences, people who come to learn at these conferences. Nick and Pink Socks have put together a magnificent cross section of the health innovation community, and it's impressive. I also say that you get people who are on the high end of the intellectual aspects of our industry, and people who are really in the trenches of making technology possible. Nick, I also wanted to ask you, I think, a really important question. You've also taken on what I'll call social causes. I've been incredibly touched, sort of heartfelt moments where the tragedy of school shootings has really drawn you in, and I've seen you in school systems that have had a horrific sort of tear in the fabric of these young people's lives, and you're there soon afterward, with the Love More Pink Socks van, and you're there in kilt with boxes of Pink Socks, sponsored by many individuals, to give out to entire schools. And I wanted to ask you, how did you decide you were going to take that on, A, and B, what are the reaction of the children and the teachers?
Yeah. I did not think about how that was going to happen. It just happened. And so this falls back into the category of the universe provides. And I look at our involvement with schools as a gift that the universe gave. And so, what do we do with that gift? And so in 2018, we're going to all the healthcare conferences, and like you say, at the meetups. There's everybody at a meetup, from C-level executive, chairman of the boards, all the way down the ranks. We have people that are like, wow, I can't believe, I've never met this person, and I come to the meetup, and I got to hug them, So that was our world, and for those 3 years. And then in 2018, we became involved with a school in El Paso, Texas. If you go to I invite your listeners to go to our website, which is pinksocks.life. Click on the About Us or Learn More, and it'll tell you more in detail about this story. Because I know we don't have a lot of time to get too into it, but there was a first grade teacher, Mrs. Zeline Blancas, at Dr. Sue A. Shook Elementary in El Paso, Texas, who we got connected with, and we gifted her pink socks for her class. And, so here we are, a bunch of, suit and tie and old crudgy guys and gals talking about healthcare stuff. And now to see happy, smiley kids going by in the flow with their pink socks, that was it was refreshing. And fast forward a year to 2019, there was a terrible shooting at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, that was very close to the school. Everybody, there was like 0 degrees of separation. Everyone knew someone that had been impacted by this mass shooting at this Walmart. And so how do we go from, as the label on the front of the sock says, the world is full of good. When you believe it, you see it, keep doing that. So we've got these teachers trying to teach kids that the world's full of good. And then something terrible happens. So I reached out to the school principal there and said, listen, how many pairs of pink socks would it take for everybody at the school? All the kids, the teachers, admin, coaches, cafeteria workers, everybody. So in November of 2019, I went along with 2 of the board members from Pinksocks.life at the time, Kimberly George out of Chicago and Julie Rice out of Denver. And we've converged into El Paso, and we gifted 1,337 pairs of pink socks to Dr. Sue A. Shook Elementary. And that's really what got us started with the schools. I'm going to leave the rest of that story because I really want your listeners to go to the website and read about the rest of the story. But today we're in 34 schools in 9 different states, pre-K through high school, where we are helping those teachers with their social emotional learning curriculum, teaching kids about kindness, empathy, compassion, cooperation, connection, anti-bullying, the stuff that grows good humans for the world. And so every school picks a day of the week where they wear their pink socks back to school, just like you're wearing your pink socks today, Gil. And every grade has a class period that day teaching those attributes in the social emotional learning curriculum. So pink socks is just a tool that they use every week to help these kids show up in the world in a way that the world needs them to show up, the way that we need them to show up, the way their community, their family, they need to show up for themselves. And that's really the most important lesson. They start teaching these kids pre-K, then kindergartner, then first grade, all the way up, is they teach them to love themselves, right? And to be kind to themselves so that they can love.
I'll tell you, that's so critical, Nick. I think that sometimes we forget self. What we're very much in the world of the do and get it done, and we forget that there's a human factor. That how can you really care about and love another person if you can't care about and love yourself? It's very difficult to be selfless in a way that is transferable in a positive way. And we forget the fact that Pink Socks is also about not just supporting the health industry, but about mental and physical health, medical health as well. And you've really been a catalyst for this. I think the health sector has always had a esprit de corps. And I think that you've brought a new dimension to that, Nick, and Pinksocks.life, that you've reminded people that great things happen through community, and the ability to love more, care more, and do more really stems from our desire to be the best selves we can be. And I think, Nick, that you've really symbolized that. I want to thank you for your leadership. Thank goodness you went to Burning Man. Thank goodness that you had this epiphany of life, what that life is happening second by second, moment by moment. I think you get that. I think you remind us. I think when we see the alternative Nick from Nicholas, the long beard and the kilt and the living life as you want to live it, it kind of opens up our mind and our hearts to realize, hey, maybe we don't have to be in the narrow bowling lane of our business and our industry, but we can be expansive in sort of the forest of life and enjoy the adventure, which you do. I know that you do that. Nick, a quick question for you as we wrap up our.
It's all about guilt. It's as you know, Rabbi. It's life is not either or. It's and.
Absolutely.
And so all of our friends in the healthcare community can show up and be the business person and wear the business hat. And they can also show up full of heart speak and heart space. They don't have to make a choice. They can do both. And that's what Pink Socks gives everyone an opportunity to have that safe space and give themselves the self-permission to say it's okay to just show up and be Gil.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nick, I want to say, if you're at any health meeting and you hear about a Pink Socks gathering, make sure it is in your schedule for that gathering. You will not only not regret it, you will feel that your life becomes far more expansive. Nick, we want to thank you and send our love to you. Thank you for all that you do for us. And also, brother, thank you for the love you're sharing and the kindness you're reminding that should be part of our everyday life. Be well. I hope to see you very, very soon.
All right. Love you, brother.
Love you.
Thanks.
And that, dear listeners, is the last note on today's melody. A huge thank you to our worldwide audience for tuning in, and a tip of the hat to our special guest, Nick Adkins, co-founder of Pinksocks.life. Pinksocks.life is a tax-exempt 501c3 charitable organization focused on promoting human connection around the world. You follow Nick's work on the web at www.pinksocks.life or on Twitter via @NickIsInPDX, and that's NickIsnPDX. Health UnaBASHed streams live 3 times a day on Healthcare Now Radio, Monday through Friday at 10:30 a.m., 6:30 p.m., and 2:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 a.m., 3:30 p.m., and 11:30 p.m. Pacific. Stay social with Gil and me on Twitter via @Gil_Bashe, and that is BASHE, and Gregg Masters MPH, and that's Gregg with 2 G's, and don't forget to give your tweet some zing with the hashtag HealthUnaBASHed. Until we meet again, pursue your passion for better health and with no apologies.